Welcome back. If you're watching this video, you should have already watched the part 1 of factor by grouping. These problems are going to have another layer to them, so they're a little bit more complex, but I hope you enjoy the Mathnificent conversation that we continue with factor by grouping. Okay, I see I have 4 terms, so my brain tells me check factor by grouping. We're going to group together the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. And we know we factor out the GCF of each grouping. In my first grouping, 1 and 3 are relatively prime, and the GCF between x to the 4th and x cubed, remember always the smallest is x cubed. X to the 4th divided by x cubed is x, minus 3x cubed divided by x cubed is 3. In my second grouping, 1x and negative 3 are relatively prime, so their greatest common factor is 1. And we're left with x minus 3. So both terms now have x minus 3. So that becomes our GCF. And we're going to factor out the GCF. I'm going to factor out x minus 3. And left with x cubed when I divide out x minus 3 from the first term, and 1 when I divide it out from the second term. Now, here we have a sum of 2 cubes, so we have to keep going. If you haven't watched the sum of 2 cubes video, please check it out. So this is going to factor into x plus 1, x squared minus 1x plus 1. Again, if you're unsure how to go from the sum of 2 cubes to this, please check out the sum of 2 cubes video. It's a very simple formula to follow. And now all of our factors are prime and we're done. Okay, let's factor 3x to the third plus x squared minus 12x minus 4. Again, my expression has 4 terms. I don't see a GCF. It looks like all of my terms are relatively prime. So I'm going to go ahead and group together the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. Remember to group that negative inside with that 12. Now it's time to factor out the GCF of each grouping. In my first grouping, 3 and 1 are relatively prime. Greatest common factor is 1. And between x cubed and x squared is our GCF. When I divide out x squared from each term, I'm left with 3x plus 1. In my second set, negative 12x and negative 4 both have a common factor of negative 4. Negative 12x divided by negative 4 is positive 3x. Negative 4 divided by negative 4 is positive 1. Both of my terms have a common factor of 3x plus 1. So we're going to again factor out GCF. So we factor out 3x plus 1. When I divide it out of my first term, I'm left with x squared. And when I divide it out of my second term, I'm left with -4. I stop. X squared minus 4 is a difference of squares. If you haven't checked out the difference of two squares video, check it out. So it factors 2, x minus 2, x plus 2, and now all of my factors are prime, so I'm done factoring. Let's factor x to the 5th plus 10x to the 4th minus 16x minus 160. I do have 4 terms, so I know factor by grouping is going to be what I try. Group together my first 2. And the last 2. Okay, so this is our step where we factor out GCF from each grouping. In my first grouping, 1 and 10 are relatively prime, so their greatest common factor is 1. X to the 5th and x to the 4th, we're going to factor out x to the 4th because, again, remember the GCF is always that smallest exponent. X to the 5th divided by x to the 4th is x, plus 10x to the 4th divided by x to the 4th is 10. GCF between -16 and -160 is going to be -16. -16x divided by -16 is x, and -160 divided by -16 is +10. Both terms I'm left with have x plus 10. So factor out GCF. We're going to factor the x plus 10 out. And then I'm left with x to the 4th minus 16. Again, x to the 4th minus 16 is a difference of squares. Check out that video if you haven't. So it will factor into x squared minus 4 times x squared plus 4. Okay. All of our factors still are not prime because x squared minus 4 is also a difference of squares. And it's going to factor into x minus 2, x plus 2, and then x squared plus 4. Now all of my factors are prime, so our expression is factored completely. Okay, our last example in the factor by grouping series, we have factor x to the 5th minus 9x cubed minus 8x squared plus 72. I don't see a GCF that can be factored out, but I do see that I have 4 terms. I'm going to go ahead and group together the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. Okay, so we know first step, always factor out GCF of each grouping. In my first grouping, 1 and 9 are relatively prime. And between x to the 5th and x cubed, we're going to factor out x cubed. And we're left with x squared minus 9. Greatest common factor between -8 and 72 is going to be -8. And we're left with x squared minus 9. Both of my terms now have x squared minus 9. So we again factor out GCF. And we're left with x cubed minus 8. And now this guy here is a difference of squares. And it's going to factor into x minus 3, x plus 3. You know where to find the video if you don't know how to go from one step to the next. And this is a difference of cubes. And it will factor into x minus 2, x squared plus 2x plus 4. Now all of our factors are prime. And we're done. I hope you enjoyed the factor by grouping series, and I look forward to seeing you in another video.